The stories shared on It Takes Balls are unique to the individual sharing. Always speak with your trusted medical provider for treatment options specific to you. Hey everybody, welcome to It Takes Balls, presented by Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation. Today I'm joined by Jonathan Hester. He's the campaign manager for Governor Kay Ivey in Alabama. Jonathan, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, sir. No, I'm excited to do it. I think what you guys are doing is really important, especially bringing awareness to guys that maybe don't even know, this could affect their lives.
Right. And red or blue politics, I mean, testicular cancer affects everybody. So, it's important to share.
Well, it's actually funny that you say that. So one of my really close friends has worked in so I work in Republican politics, obviously. One of my really close friends has worked in Democrat politics the entire time we've known each other. And when I got diagnosed, he was one of the first people to reach out to me. And he told me that his brother had been diagnosed a couple years before, which caused his little brother to actually start studying to become a urologist.
Oh, wow.
So specializing in testicular cancer. So, I mean, it truly does affect everybody, no matter your, faith, race, creed, whatever, everybody can be affected by this.
100%. Tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do, and then let's get into your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously went to Auburn University, War Eagle, #1 in the country right now. Hopefully it lasts. But went to Auburn, graduated. I moved up to Washington, D.C. I worked up there doing some consulting work in communications and research, and then got offered to come back to Alabama, which is my home state, to work for the governor's first campaign. So luckily we won that. And then I went into the official office for the last 3 years, and I just rolled back out to do the campaign again. So we're really excited getting up and rolling. I know, all of my family is filled with preachers, so I'm the only one that went into politics. So I say I'm the black sheep, but it's a lot of fun. And as long as I'm crazy enough to do it, then I'll keep doing it. And I'm sure one day I'll be smart and decide to go do something else. But right now I still love it.
Totally off the wall question here, but they say don't talk about religion or politics at the holidays. What do you guys talk about?
That is literally all dinner and lunch and everything. Basically my two favorite topics to talk about are politics and theology, just because that's what I do and that's what my family does. So it makes for really interesting conversations because people always try to ask me about stuff. But it's actually funny because in DC, all of my friends worked in politics, obviously, and we had a rule that you cannot talk about politics after 5 p.m. So because it's what we did for a living. So it was like, okay, once 5 p.m. hits, no talk about politics. We're just having fun because, you'd have people on different sides of fights and all that. But at the end of the day, you weren't friends with somebody because of what their political beliefs were. You were friends with them because they were good people and they were good for you to have in your life. So we made that rule. We broke it a lot, but we did at least have the rule.
That sounds like a good rule. All right, let's get into your testicular cancer story. You were diagnosed at age 27.
Yes. Yeah. So I, really weird and I could kind of tell the backstory of getting to the point of diagnosis. So my wife and I started the new job in the governor's official side office in January of that year, end of January, beginning of February. My wife and I got married in May of that year, on May 25th. And we went to Puerto Rico for our honeymoon. And so it was a lot of fun. We did hiking, kayaking, all that kind of good stuff. But when we got back, I had a pulled muscle, and it kind of was in my lower abdomen through my groin into my leg. And I didn't know the reason why. I just was okay, this is really bothering me. I need to go to the doctor. I'm also a hypochondriac, which in this case has served me well. Typically that doesn't. You just kind of get paranoid. But I decided to go to the doctor, and he checked me out, and he said, look, he's been my doctor for a while. He goes, look, he's I think you're totally fine, but I want to send you to a urologist just in case. And so, of course, I was freaking out. I was just oh, gotta go to urologist. Could it be something bad? Well, they check me out. They do this, they do a scan on me and everything. And they say, everything's fine, but we want you to come back in 4 months. And so I was okay, did you see anything? And they said, well, we saw a little calcification, varicocele, nothing major, but we just want you to come back in 4 months. And I was okay, cool. So I didn't even think about it again until they called me for my appointment. And I was actually about to cancel the appointment because I had an event to go to that afternoon. And they said, well, we can put you first thing in the morning. And I said, okay, well, I'll come first thing in the morning. So I get there and they do an ultrasound, and the doctor comes in and he said, so he's like, put the picture up on the wall. And he said, so you see these, blood vessels right here. And I go, yeah, I see the veins. And he goes, well, those are normal. Like, that's reacting perfectly, yada, yada. I was like, okay. And then he goes, you see these up here on top? And I was like, yeah, what about them? And he goes, well, that's actually a mass. Judging by your age and your, just the fact that you're in the, prime demographic to have this, we believe it's a cancerous tumor. He said, there's a chance it's not cancerous, but it's definitely a tumor, and we need to operate. How does Friday look? And this was on Wednesday. After he said cancer, I completely zoned out. Like, it was just like echoing in my head. I don't know if you've seen the movie 50-50, but like, it's a guy, and he's like, about our age, like he was in his 20s, early 30s, and he got diagnosed with cancer. And it's just like his world kind of crashes in because, like, 27, you're not thinking about that. Like, I just started a new job. I just got married. I was literally on top of the world. Like, I was, just living my best life. And then that came crashing down, and I was, terrified. I started researching it, and I started calling, my family and close friends, because I didn't want to freak anybody out, because obviously when you're at that point, they don't really tell you like, oh, we know it's cancer. They say it's probably cancer, but we have to operate to get it out of you. And then, in 2 weeks, when the oncology comes back, we'll know whether it's cancer or not. And so I called close friends, and I called my parents. Of course, my parents were freaking out. And it was funny because I don't really deal with like, and it's weird because I'm a preacher, so I should be able to talk about like very like sensitive topics in a very, helpful, comforting way. Mm-hmm. And I'm good at that with other people, but when I'm talking about myself, I can't. So I was calling my friends and family, and I said, yeah, so just so you know, I'm going into surgery on Friday. I probably have testicular cancer, but, negative side is I have cancer, but on the bright side, after I get past this, I'll have two things in common with Lance Armstrong. I'll be a testicular cancer survivor, and I won't have any Tour de France titles. So everybody was just like, dude, what are you like? Stop. Like, it's not a joke. Like, are you okay mentally? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. So luckily, they did the surgery, and, they said, you're going to have 3 weeks of recovery. They were like, you do not need to be back in the office for 3 weeks. Like, you just need to stay at home, lay around, and that's it. But I was running this big study group for the governor's office. And I think it was exactly 1 week after my surgery, we were having a major meeting, and I was supposed to run it. And so my office said, do not come in. Like, you were totally fine. Stay home. But it meant a lot to me to be there because I put so much work into it. So I literally came in like limping, like no other. Like one of the guys in the area that we were having the meeting offered to get me a wheelchair. And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm just here. And like, nobody knew what surgery I had. Like, people just knew that like I had some kind of surgery. And so I was limping around, got through the day, and I was just in like insufferable pain, but I was just like, I'm going to do it. It's fine. That next Monday, I actually had to fly to San Diego for a work thing. So literally it was like back to back. And I was just like, I'm not letting this slow me down. Cause I decided when I got diagnosed, I was like, I'm not letting this slow me down. Things I've got going on are not changing. So then that next week I flew out, and I actually got the call on that work trip that it was cancer. And of course I was like, okay, kind of understood that. But my urologist, when we got done, had told my wife, he was like, it looks like we caught it super early. He was like, it wasn't even detectable by a normal test. He goes, so within that 4 months in between, it had developed into a tumor. Mm-hmm. He was like, I don't think there's anything more. Luckily that was the case. I started meeting with my oncologist. I've been on active surveillance for over 2 years now. So luckily haven't had any issues recur. And every, 6 months now, and then after this next time, I think I'll be up to a yearly scans. Every time it's, you get a ton of anxiety going into it, that bad scanxiety, but at the same time, it's a celebration at the end. Like it's a massive celebration for me because I'm just like, okay, like I'm one step closer to being fully in remission. I'm one step closer to hitting that 5-year mark and just having that peace of mind that it's, very unlikely to come back.
One thing that stood out to me at the beginning of your story was you said you're a hypochondriac, and then you had this 4 months between. Did you not think about it at all? You were able to kind of put it behind you? You were so busy with work or something?
So that actually is a good point. So when I went to the urologist, so the pain that I was having was on the right side. So it was on the right side completely. And when I went in, they checked out everything. So they did like just a standard exam, and then they did the ultrasound. And so after that, like the pain went away. He was like, yeah, just do stretches. He was like, talk to your doctor about different stretches to help that out. And he was like, but it's definitely nothing to do with your groin. And I was like, okay. When it came and I had it, it actually occurred on my left side. So that was the reason, because the pain of the muscle pain had gone away. So I just assumed that when I went back in for a check, they were just, it was just a standard procedure. I'd never been to a urologist before. So I assumed that like, okay, they just give it a little while and then bring you back in to check. But luckily my urologist has been doing this for 30 something years, and he saw something on the left side that gave him pause. And he was like, yeah, we're going to need to keep a watch. Might be nothing, but his intuition kicked in. And when he told me, he like did another exam, and he said, I'm going to be honest. He was like, a lot of times when we find this, it's like very noticeable. There's a heaviness, there's a bump, there's something. He goes, yours is so early. Like you would not have been even able to feel it on yourself for, no telling how many more months. So it was just extremely lucky. And I was extremely blessed to have the urologist I did.
Yeah, it seems like pretty common that people are discovering it kind of coincidentally when, like I've talked to, guys in the Air Force who have just been getting their physicals, and they were at the peak shape of their life. And like you were saying, you were at the peak, career kind of moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's wild, and it's kind of bizarre because, you're like, you don't think about, like, I never really had any thoughts about cancer as a young person. Like, you see the commercials for St. Jude all the time where it's like, pediatric cancer. And you see children going through it. And it's something that it's like incredibly sad thing that they were born with something, or it developed very early on in life. But especially guys at our age, like you don't see it. There's no representation out there. There's not people constantly talking about it. And, sadly, and I'm guilty of this when I was, in high school and stuff, I'm sure is, the cancer that we have turns into the butt of a joke. Mm-hmm. And it's like me calling my friends and family and joking about it because I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know how to tell my family, like, oh, by the way, I'm 27. I'm recently married. I'm in a great job and I love my career path. And I got cancer now. It's like, you don't really know how to put it out there. And the lack of representation almost hurts because I didn't know, like, outside, honestly, and like, praise God that he has done what he's done for the space. The only person I knew who had it was Lance Armstrong. But like, one good thing I knew about that was looking at his story, like it had spread all over his body and it was stage 4 and he still beat it. Mm-hmm. And so like thinking of it in that manner was helpful, but I didn't start meeting guys or hearing guys' stories. Like even my buddy whose brother had it, I didn't even start hearing those stories until I had it. So I've tried to be incredibly vocal about it. Like I've been open about my story as soon as we did find out it was cancer. And, went to my oncologist and went under active surveillance. Cause I hadn't broadcasted it at all. I decided, my doctor told me, my oncologist, he was like, it's like, just so you know, like, you don't have to tell anybody you're going through this. Like, he was like, it is completely your choice. Some people feel, like they're terrified to tell people because it can make them like, seem weak. And then some people are like, oh yeah, like I'm going to tell people because they need to know this important thing about my life. He was like, but it's completely your choice. And so I decided personally that I wanted to talk about it because I didn't know anybody else talking about it. In my little tiny corner of the world, I didn't know anybody else. And the amazing thing, like, so I released a video, like my wife and I did a video and put it on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And basically I just told the story and talked about how I got diagnosed and talked about how I was in remission and all that. And then after that, it was shocking to me, like, because I still post every time I go get a scan, I post out like, great, 6 more months cancer free. That's fantastic. And if it did come back, I would get on there first thing and say, like, going into chemo tomorrow, let's kick its butt. Because since I got diagnosed and I've been public about it, I've had so many guys, and I'm like, it's countless at this point, guys reaching out to me saying, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. I've got this question. Like, I've got this thing I found. I've got this issue. Do I go straight to a urologist? Do I go to my doctor? Like, can you tell me how to do a self-exam? Like, it has been so constant that I feel like, when you've had it and you've been in our space, being vocal to those, not just that have had it or are going through it, or family members of those that have had it, but being vocal to everybody is important, because we've got to make sure that people understand that this is a very real, terrifying threat that guys, I think, what is it, between the ages of like 18 and 35?
Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation is 15 to 44 is what
15 to 44. I mean, it is the most common cause of cancer in guys my age. So, it's one of those things that, like, if I can help one person go get checked in early detection and be able to get it out and not have to go through chemo and radiation, and not have any long-term side effects from it, like, I think that's important.
100%. And we don't tell these stories on this podcast to scare anybody. It's, it's something that you say somebody might identify with, something that, somebody else says somebody might identify with. We're not trying to scare anybody. We just want you to know that you're not alone. And like you said, you didn't hear anybody talking about it, and it's great that you're doing it.
Well, and I'll say too, and this is a thing for any guy who might be worried about something they found or anything, watching this right now and hearing what we're talking about. Every single guy, I can name 5 right off the top of my head that have messaged me wanting to go to a doctor, get checked out. We're worried about something. Every single one of them, it came back that it was nothing. Every single one of them. But they wouldn't have gotten checked otherwise. One of my best friends called me not that long ago, and he was freaking out. And he was like, what were your signs and symptoms? And I was like, well, I actually didn't have any. I was, it was extremely lucky, the situation I got in. But what are your signs and symptoms? He went to the urologist, found out he didn't have to have a referral. So he went to the urologist, got checked out, and the doctor actually talked about me to him, because he was like, yeah, Jonathan Hester referred me. And he was like, oh, yeah. He's like, he's my earliest case I've ever caught it. He goes, well, you're good. You don't have it. And so he was on his way and he was good to go. So I think that the biggest thing is you shouldn't be scared to go to a doctor if you've got questions, because if I had just dealt with my pulled muscle and not gone to the doctor the first time, I wouldn't have gotten referred over to a urologist, and I wouldn't have gotten checked out, and they wouldn't have said, come back in 4 months. And who knows when I would have caught it, so any kind of medical issue, guys need to be more active about taking care of our health. We just need to, we've got to take it in our own hands, because nobody's telling you to, nobody's forcing you to, once you're out of the house, your parents aren't saying, hey, you got to go get your checkup. Hey, you got to go to your, physical, you're out of the house at that point. So you've got to take that into your own hands and make sure that you're controlling the narrative of your life.
100%. And, if people don't want to talk about it, that's fine. It's great to have people like you who do, because one thing, Dr. Phil Perazio, we talked to last month, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it. He talked about, this being a disease really of survivors, and the mental aspect of it being kind of the hardest. So, Absolutely. Or one of the hardest parts. So if you are out there and you're struggling, I mean, you can hear these stories and know that other people have gone through it. You're not alone. Absolutely. And, I'll say this, I've never been a crier. I've never been a crier. And I don't say this lightly, but it is part of my story. And I don't tell people this openly, but the whole point of this is to talk to guys that might be going through it, or family members that might be going through this. I didn't cry through the entire first part of it. I was terrified. I never had a major surgery. And I could say when they were about to put me in the anesthesia, I was terrified because I just hadn't had that happen. Guys, a lot of friends of mine have old, baseball injuries where they had to have major surgeries or back injuries. I never had that. So I was more scared of the surgery than anything else, just because I'd never had surgery. But I didn't cry until it was
I think couple weeks after, and the only reason I remember it was a couple weeks after is because I still was limping really bad from my surgery. So I still wasn't fully recovered. But we were at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's walk. And my wife does a lot of amazing work with them and has for a long time. And this girl came up to our table and she talked to us about the fact that she tried to complete suicide. And like, I'm getting emotional talking about it because like, I don't know why that hit me so hard, but I just like, as soon as she left the table that we were working, I just started bawling like a baby. And that was the first time I'd become emotional over my own experience. And I had finally confronted, this is what you've gone through. I mean, like what you're saying about like it being a mental issue afterwards, like it being like something you mentally have to deal with. Like I was not fully myself for months after. You know, it's like you, not only do you have like your testosterone trying to regulate within your own body and your, you know, hormones trying to figure everything out. But like mentally, you just went through a very traumatic experience. And like for the rest of my life now, like, you know, which hopefully I'd live to be 110 and on the moon colony with Elon Musk. But, you know, for the rest of my life, I'll always be a cancer survivor. That's always going to be part of my story. You know, whether people know that or not, like, you know, you have to look at the anxiety that you're going through. You know, you might be going through depression or anger, or, you know, why did this have to happen to me? You know, I lean specifically on my faith to really try to understand it. And my faith is extremely important to me, but not just that, like you have to also understand that from that point forward, you always have to talk to people and understand people with empathy, because you don't know what people are going through. You know, I didn't know that like so many people in my life had gone through cancer scares. I was at a work conference and there was somebody from, you know, multiple governor's offices there. And we were sitting at a table eating dinner, and the lady sitting right beside me, she found out about like what I had gone through. And she told me that she had gone through stage 4 breast cancer and she was in remission from that. And we just celebrated. And then another girl that I knew from another governor's office was sitting across from me. And she said, I was like pre-breast cancer and I got surgery for it and all that. I mean, the thing is, you don't know what people are going through. And I feel like you've got to use your, you know, use your anxiety and use your experience to try to understand what other people are going through, and try to be helpful, try to be a light to other people. I mean, that's one of the hardest things I think it is for somebody to realize once you get through it is, you know, you need to be as big of a light and as big of a help to others as humanly possible. Whether it be that you want to share your story. And I don't consider like guys that share or don't share like brave or not brave. It is a complete personal decision. You know, I personally decided, I was like, I want to share this out because I don't know anybody that's gone through it. And I want to make sure that if somebody else going through it, they can call me and they can say, hey, I'm going through this. But it is something that is extremely personal that happened to you. And it's taboo to talk about it, which we've got to break the stigma of men's health issues in general, but it's taboo to talk about it. So you've just got to understand that like wherever you're at, you need to try to help those around you. If you are a survivor. And if you're going through it, welcome to the club. It's the coolest club that you never wanted to be a part of. There's so many great people out there. There's so many people that want to help you and talk to you about it. Obviously, like anybody that watches this, if they want to find me on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, and, you know, shoot me a DM, I'm more than happy to talk to you because, you know, you need support. Like one of the first guys I got connected to through the Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation was a guy out in Colorado who found his by happenstance. And he like called me. It was like the day after my surgery, and he gives me a call and he was like, how are you feeling? And I was like, awful. I was like, I'm laying on the couch watching movies. I was like, I can't really move. And he was like, great. He goes, well, welcome to the club. He goes, you're going to be fine. And like, that's what you need to hear. And like, you've got to be that for other people.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, and in your position working with the governor, you have been able to get a proclamation. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. It is a huge deal. So the governor's office does proclamations on different, health related issues in different months, weeks, and days. So the governor has declared it Testicular Cancer Awareness Month in the state of Alabama. So hopefully this will just be one more tool to break the stigma surrounding what we've gone through and be able to shine a light on this major issue facing, guys like us.
That's awesome. And then, if anybody, obviously it's April now, so it might be too late, but anybody in other states, if you want help with it, reach out to me or, maybe Jonathan, I don't know, maybe you'll offer your assistance with putting together a proclamation in different states. So that'd be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, one of the easiest things that government officials in any capacity can do is bring awareness to issues, that affects so many people. And, obviously this personally affected me. The governor is a cancer survivor as well. We actually were not that far apart months when, she had super early stage cancer. I had super early stage cancer. Luckily she, kicked his butt and it was gone. I kicked his butt and it was gone. But it's something that has affected so many people surrounding our office and every single office in America. So anything that officials can do to help with that, most of them are more than happy to. And so I think it's extremely important. If you know somebody that is connected with a government office, just ask them, just talk to them, because officials are, more than happy to say, oh yeah, this is a huge deal. Like, let me put something out. Let me post it on social media. Let me, do a quick video on it. Let me do a proclamation, just to bring more awareness to the issue.
Yeah. And like you said, in your, I think you said your small corner of the world, you didn't even know about it. So, I mean, how many people are out there just like you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, my viewpoint is, especially you kind of get like a understanding working in politics. Like, I've touched so many things that so many people are seeing, oh, this, politician said X, or this politician did this, or I saw this, commercial out. But you really understand how small your corner of the world is. Whether you're in a small group at church, whether you're in a sports league, whether you're in, dodgeball club, like whatever, those people are the people that rely on you, to have a better understanding of the world around them. And, you can affect one person positively. If you can change your little corner of the world, make it a better place for those around you, then you should try. It might not always work out, but it's always worth the try.
Shout out to you, man. It sounds like kindness is your key. What else is key? Early detection.
Yes. Yeah. Also, just if you're watching this and you have never gotten into like checking yourself or anything, do it. Like I tell every guy I know, check regularly, check often. There's cards on the Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation's website that you can look at for guidance. It's something that you've got to do, and when you hit 44, you can be super excited that at that point, from then on out, then you'll just go to the doctor and they'll give you prostate exams, which is also super not cool. But that being said, like if you're in the age range that it's prominent, you definitely need to be checking yourself, going to the doctor regularly, getting checked up. Because if you don't, then you could end up in a situation where you let something get out of control that you didn't even know you had.
Thank you for the shout out for the Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation website. We do have all those resources on there. Let's jump back to, you said you were just recently married. So when you get a cancer diagnosis and being a newlywed, I mean, what is that like in your head?
Terrifying. So that morning when I got told at the urologist, I called my wife and I called her and then she didn't pick up, and I called her again because I was like, I gotta tell her. And so when she did pick up, she was like, hey, what's going on? Cause she knew I was at the doctor. But again, she thought like I did, it was just gonna be a normal checkup. And she was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, are you in a meeting? And she was like, yeah, I'm in a meeting. I was like, oh, just call me back when your meeting's over. And she was like, okay. Well, she knew that something was going on. Like she knew that I wouldn't have called her twice if, it was just a normal checkup. And so she immediately stepped out of the meeting, called me back. She was like, tell me what's going on. Cause she knew, like, even though I hadn't said anything, she knew. And, we had been together for multiple years prior to getting engaged, prior to getting married. So, I mean, she probably knows me better than I know myself, just to be quite honest. And so she called me and then she talked to me and she said, okay, don't worry. We're going to get through it. Like, and had the same scare that anybody does. I mean, it's, you know, when you see a loved one, and we actually have, you know, another personal connection with cancer, because we just went through her dad having cancer. Oh, no. And when you see a loved one going through something that you have no control over, you know, it's hard. And especially like newlyweds. I mean, everybody told us like the first year of marriage is going to be the craziest, you know, year of your life, like trying to figure out everything. We didn't realize that the first year of our marriage would include, you know, a cancer diagnosis and a global pandemic. Right. Like that was like not in the realm of possibility initially when we got married. But then, you know, it was what it was. So it was tough at first, but honestly, I think the experience made us stronger in our relationship, because we saw that and we said, okay, like, you know, if she can put up with my, you know, crazy mood swings, trying to like, you know, while my body's trying to figure itself out while I'm sad and anxious and depressed, if she could put up with that for me, then, you know, we can get through anything. So it was tough, but I think it made us stronger.
That's great to hear. Glad you guys seem to be doing well. Which leads to my next question. Yeah. Kids, is that something that you guys have talked about or want to have?
Yeah. So, if you let me say this to anybody watching, if you're currently going through this, make sure at the beginning, you just go ahead and go to the, I think it's like, technically it's like the reproduction and endocrinology and bank. Just go ahead and do it. Get it out of the way. It's weird. It's awkward. You'll be thankful for it later. Yeah, so we do eventually, not yet. All of our friends are starting to have babies. And so we're kind of getting like that. We said, we were like, we're not having kids till we're 30. We were just like, that was our rule. We got married. We had an understanding like 30 is when we'll have kids. So now I'm 29. Now I'm like maybe 31. But that being said, yeah, that's been a conversation. And it was scary for me because when I went to get checked, I was like, you know, you don't even, until you're trying to have kids, you don't even really think about whether you can have kids. Like, it's just something natural. It's just like, you're just like, oh, well, I can probably have kids. Like, you know, you don't think about it. So yeah, luckily, you know, I'm still totally fine on that front. But do have some, you know, in a random Birmingham hospital in a refrigerator somewhere. But that being said, yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that, like, again, 5 months into being married, we had to start talking about like, okay, we haven't even really like decided on the whole kids issue yet. And I've got to go check and make sure I can have them. So it's like, you know, it's one of those weird things that comes up, but yeah, I definitely want to at some point. And then, you know, we've got some saved up just in case we need it. But as of right now, you know, doctor was like, yeah, you're good. So as long as nothing comes back, then hopefully that'll be a relatively smooth venture.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to you guys for sure. Do you have any advice? We kind of have talked about advice the whole way through, but I mean, do you have any kind of like bona fide, like, here's an advice statement for somebody facing the diagnosis right now?
Yeah. So if you are facing the diagnosis, the advice I would give myself, and this is kind of like what my dad told me and what my wife told me and what my mom told me and our preacher told me. I mean, like literally everybody who I was talking to told me, face it head on. If you're looking at a diagnosis, face it head on. No matter what's on the other side, because you'll probably get surgery first thing. Most guys have to do that first. You'll probably get surgery first thing. Whatever's on the other side of the surgery is what's on the other side of the surgery. You know, you can't control that. You put your trust in doctors. They know what they're doing. And you have to understand that they went to multiple years of medical school and residency to be able to treat you. You know, if you're scared, reach out to somebody and talk about it. Don't bottle that up. You know, afterwards, I think that, you know, my wife was a little bit worried because I hadn't cried. I hadn't really showed emotion, but I hadn't had a catalyst for it yet. Like nothing had really like hit me. And it's okay to feel emotion at any point in the process. Like, I mean, I would be watching a movie and a sad scene would come on like a month after my surgery and I would start crying. And I've never been a crier. I mean, like, it's something that I've never been apt to do. But you've got to let those emotions out. And if you're feeling scared or anxious or anything, you've got to talk to people. I mean, there are people that God puts in your life to be there for you. And so reach out. I mean, reaching out to strangers is great. I mean, if you see somebody that's gone through it, reach out to them, reach out to me. I mean, I'm more than happy to talk to you. Don't let my Southern accent get in the way. I know a little bit about the subject because I've been through it. So feel free to reach out to me. I mean, it's not something that you should be going through alone. And I think that's one of the best things that your organization is doing, is telling people they're not going through it alone. There's a Facebook group that, is a massive support group for testicular cancer patients and survivors. And I have felt so much love and given so much love in that group, because it's people going like, hey, I have never gone through anything like this. I'm scared. What do I do? That was me when I first entered the group. I was like, there's, it's like 50,000 people, something like that in this group. And I was like, there's 50,000 people right now that are either going through this or family of people going through this that have a similar story to mine right now, that I could just post something out and say, hey, has anybody gone through this? And I'll get 30 responses within 30 minutes of guys going, oh yeah, I've absolutely gone through that. Or my buddy tags their buddy and says they've gone through it. Reach out and make sure that you had that support system built up and talk about it, because bottling your emotions on the subject up within yourself does not help. And I saw, a heartbreaking story about a guy who just refused to go get checked. Like, he knew something was wrong and he just refused to go get checked. Finally, when he went to the doctor and everything, I think it was like stage 2. And so he had a lot more intensive treatment than he would have otherwise. If you're on the fence, if you feel like something's wrong, if you've come across this video because you're doing your own research and you think, oh, I have this. If you're a hypochondriac like me and you've done your own research and gotten to this video and you're watching it and you're saying like, oh, should I go get checked? Go get checked. Just go get checked. Know that there's always people that are going to stick their hand out there and say, look, I've gone through it. It's no big deal. You're going to be fine.
And the important thing to note there is testicular cancer, 95% curable if detected early.
Absolutely.
So like you're saying, just if you see something, say something, go get checked. No shame.
No.
Just do it.
I mean, the doctors, you see all these weird things that doctors have seen, like, coming in like their offices, like, trust me, that's not going to be the weirdest thing that the doctor has to do all day, is to make sure that you don't have cancer. Like, that is not, like, by far not the weirdest thing that he's going to have to do that day. That's standard procedure. That's the reason why there are doctors. That's the reason why you can go in. I mean, if you go into, one of the urgent care clinics, like, they'll do an exam on you. And if they think something's wrong, they'll refer you to, like, you don't even have to go to a regular doctor. Like, you've got to make sure that you've detected it early. You've gone and gotten yourself checked out, because it's so important. It's so important. It's your own life that you're working with. And if you don't take your own initiative on it, nobody else will. Nobody's going to drag you kicking and screaming to the doctor. Nobody's going to, like, call you every single day, except I will say, one of my buddies, I had to call him every single day because he was super worried. And he was like, I don't want to go to the doctor. And I was like, no, you're going. So I ended up calling him like every day. And then finally he went and he was good. But nobody's going to be dragging you there. Like, you've got to take it into your own hands, get early detection, reach out to your loved ones, reach out to people that have gone through it, join a support group, stay active. Like, don't let it slow you down. If you have surgery and you have to fly to San Diego in a week from across the country, fly to San Diego in a week across the country. Don't let it slow you down. The biggest issue with that trip for me was not the fact that I still was sore and not emotionally stable from my surgery and all that. The biggest issue for that trip was I flew into the Charlotte airport and my terminal for my next flight was across the airport. And I literally asked somebody if I could get on one of the go-kart things. And they were like, oh, that's only for people in wheelchairs. And I was like, okay, so I hobbled across the airport. I was like literally hobbling at top speed, just trying to get to my next flight, and luckily made it. But don't let it slow you down. Just, take it in stride. It is scary, but, good things come out of scary things. Like, I feel like, it made me stronger as a person, which obviously I never wished to go through it. Made me strong as a person. It made me meet so many great people that have also gone through it and have lived with this for years. I found out so many incredible stories from people. So don't let it be a deterrent in your life. Like, your life's not over. Your life's just beginning. And then 5 years after that, as long as you don't have it recur, then you get to be a full-on survivor, which is awesome. And then you don't have to get poked, multiple times with a needle within a week for, at least a while. So it's a good thing.
Well, you've been great. Do you have any final thoughts? Any doctors you want to shout out in Alabama that, if anybody's around and near you?
Yeah. So Mel Duggan was my urologist. He is fantastic. He is still practicing in Birmingham. If somebody's watching this in Alabama, Urology Centers of Alabama, they do an incredible job. They are who, got mine, treated me, great people. I would shout out my first oncologist because I loved him, but he actually just retired. So I've only had one appointment with my new oncologist, but Dr. Ira Gore was my first oncologist. And he made me feel like it was the most normal thing in the world. He, always walked in, bubbly personality. And he was just like, he's like, how's it going? Like, everything good? Last year, I actually lost a bunch of weight on purpose. I was like trying to lose weight. And he walked in, the first thing he said, he was like, Jonathan. I was like, yes, sir. And he goes, you've lost 40 pounds. I was like, I have. He goes, were you trying to lose 40 pounds? I was like, I was. And he goes, good job. Okay. I just want to make sure because your CT scan was clear. So you don't have cancer or anything, but like, he was like, I was a little bit worried about you. And I was like, no, I tried, trust me. And I was like, just cut back on the Cokes, cut back on the sweet tea, ate salad more than once a month, just tried to do the normal stuff like that.
I need to get on that plan because I tried to put on a suit today and it did not close the same way it did before.
Dude, here's the thing though about losing weight. I was like so excited and I was very happy that I lost the weight. But now I've been slowly having to rebuild all my clothes. And so I'd say like still in my closet. And I got down to the weight I am now, like mid last year, 90% of the clothes in my closet don't fit. And they make me look like I'm wearing like my dad's coat as a kid. Like, it's so bad. So at times I'm like, do I want to spend money or do I just want to gain back 40 pounds? Like it's a cheating. I don't know.
Well, what you would spend on clothes, you'd probably have to spend on food. So
exactly. I mean, true. It's a wash at the end of the day.
Yeah. Hey, well, thank you so much again for telling your story. I really appreciate it. And everybody listening appreciates it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. Keep up the good work. More people need to hear this message. More people need to hear guys talking about it because it's something that should be normalized. I think we're finally getting to that point. I think with the Movember movement, like we're finally talking about men's health issues, not just what, we've gone through in testicular cancer, but, depression, suicide, prostate cancer, we've got to normalize these things. And as guys, we are the only line of defense in our health. We are the only line. We have to make sure that we're telling other guys, hey, go get checked. Hey, do this. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. For more information and resources for your testicular cancer journey, visit testicularcancerawarenessfoundation.org. You can also follow us on social media at Testis Cancer. We're on Facebook at Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation.